Hello and welcome to Doom Does DVD, and this is Disney Classics number 48, Bolt. Yet another one which completely passed me by when it was first released, and so I don't really know anything about it. But I can make a couple of assumptions. Based on the poster, Bolt is obviously a dog, happens to have a little sort of bolt stripe on his coat. And the whole poster's just giving off this similar vibe to The Flash. So I'm imagining this is some kind of puppy who can run particularly fast and possibly even goes so far as to be a superhero puppy, quite possibly just a complete animal version of the Flash story. Though to be honest, as more of a Marvel guy, I don't really know if there is a particularly, traditional Flash story like there is for some of the big ones, Batman, Superman, Spider-Man. I guess there probably is, but I'm not familiar with it. So 3D animated animal superheroes. It has the potential to at least be fun, but it could also be not so great. Let's hope that it's the former and see what this one's all about. Well, that one turned out to be one of the ones where it was much better than I was expecting. It was also much different than I was expecting, which probably helped that fact. It actually starts out on kind of a dark story point where a father contacts a daughter and says, "You can't go home anymore, but I've given your dog superpowers to protect you." It cuts to a bit later, the girl and the dog are trying to rescue the father and there's a whole big chase scene, but then it turns out that that's actually all completely fake. The whole thing is a TV show and everybody knows that except for the dog, which is supposed to make him be able to, act better because he thinks it's real. And at that point in the story, I was kind of disappointed with that fake out. I was kind of looking forward to the big flashy action spy adventure at that point. But it turns out what they had in store probably was actually much better. A couple of different things happen which we don't need to go into the details of, and we end up with the dog Bolt ending up in the real world for the first time and having to do a cross-country road trip while realising that he doesn't actually have any of the superpowers he thinks he does. Along the way he meets a cat called Mittens, and it's at that point where I started really enjoying things. I've always been a bit more of a cat person, and the character of Mittens is great. She's a street cat and basically there to teach Bolt about the real world and become friends on their journey. And, it's just a lot of fun from that point on. And so the look of this and the feel of this, and it's like, of the Disney CG era, this actually feels the most like one which could actually be a Pixar film. Possibly aided by the fact that John Lasseter was a producer on this one anyway. At this point in time, he is employed by Disney and is Chief Creative Officer of both Pixar and Walt Disney Animation. Although he also was on Meet the Robinsons, and that one didn't turn out quite as well as this one did. It's even got the more Pixar stylized end credits with, things happening and characters walking around the credit, which Disney have done from time to time, I have to admit, but it's not anywhere near as often. But it definitely gives off a very Pixar vibe, and it's like, at this point in the history of the two companies, it's hard to differentiate between the two. They're both under the Disney umbrella and they're both producing very similar styles of content. Also, I thought the voice acting in this was all actually quite good. When I see the name Miley Cyrus in 2020, that has certain connotations. But honestly, that's not really based on any personal experience. I've never seen her act in anything else. I just know of her general reputation as a pop star. And at this point when this was made, she'd only just come off Hannah Montana. She did well with the character of Penny, as did John Travolta with the character of Bolt. There's a few other famous names in smaller roles, but then the rest of the bigger supporting roles, such as Mittens, for example, are more sort of actual general voice actor types who aren't necessarily quite as famous but do a really good job. And so while I personally had never really heard much about this one, and it apparently didn't do particularly well at the box office, it did get reasonably favourable reviews. And so it seems to me that it's taking a sort of similar role to Oliver and Company, which was, you know, sort of a bit of a middle bridge which led us into the Disney Renaissance. And here we've got another one which is striving for something, not quite getting there, turning out reasonably okay, and will lead us into what's known as the Disney Revival era. After a few which weren't all that spectacular, like Chicken Little and Meet the Robinsons, we're getting into the era of Princess and the Frog, Tangled, Wreck-It Ralph, and of course Frozen. So this is like the sign pointing towards good things to come. Maybe worth a look if it's one that you'd dismissed in the past. What are your thoughts on Bolt? Tell me about those in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again next week with The Princess and the Frog.